And if you just wait a moment. And you are now live.
Okay. Yeah. Well, welcome everybody to our FBS Chat. We are really thrilled to have Linda Metcalf with us from the US. I've recently been attending some of Linda's online training regarding trauma, and the one tonight I believe is about people struggling to get back to school. So I'm really looking forward to that. And thank you so much for giving us your time this evening. So I generally like to kick it off with how you came across the solution focus approach and why it resonated with you so much.
Sure. I remember the day, actually. I was in graduate school for my PhD, and I had just come back from Maryland, where I had observed Jay Haley talk.
Oh.
I came back and just enamored with strategic family therapy, and then I went into my class, and the teacher said, okay, here are 2 books, brand new books. This is the early 90s that I want you all to start reading because they're very exciting. One book was In Search of Solutions by Bill O'Hanlon. The other book was Narrative Means to Therapeutic Ends by David Epstein and Michael White. So read them both at the same time. And suddenly everything just opened up. And I really, really enjoyed Bill O'Hanlon's book because it was simpler to read, for sure. And started using it in my graduate program when I saw clients in the clinic. And realized that it was a drastically different approach than strategic family therapy, which was at times frustrating because although I love the creativity of strategic therapy in creating opportunities and creating ways for them to change their lives, too often I have my intervention ready to go and they'd come back and they'd already changed. And just by circumstances of life, but this is a different way of looking at people. And I love the respectfulness and I love the creativity in it too. And so once I got started, I just didn't stop. And my major professor was very encouraging. And during that time, Steve DeShazer and Insoo Kim Berg came to our university, and I got to have dinner with them. I got to meet them.
Wow.
Yeah, I was lucky to get to meet Bill O'Hanlon. He was doing a lot of workshops then. And then Michael Durant came. And so I felt very, very fortunate to meet a lot of these wonderful people. Scott Miller, they were all doing solution-focused work. And that led to me doing my dissertation at BFTC at DeShazer's place. And so that just kind of took off from there. And it seems to fit the way I think, which I think models have to do for them to make sense to you as a therapist. And that's how it started.
Wow. So do you think in some respects, if when you said it has to fit with the way we think, is that because often we explain the solution focused approach when we train other professionals, and it's really difficult for them to grasp about not being delving into the problem too deeply, and so they find it really, really difficult. So in terms of that fit, does it mean that we need that kind of mentality at first to take it on, or is it something that once you do it you think, wow, I don't know why I didn't do this in the first place?
I think it's a combination of both. I think there will be people that have struggled with certain models because they have to be so directive, and they've got a very kind, caring personality that does not like confrontation. And I think those are drawn to it quickly. But I've also seen some converts from people that were a little more directive, that once they experienced it and practiced it in a workshop setting on themselves and a partner, began to see the magic in it. And it's not so much, they have to kind of begin to believe, as Evan George says so well, to seek out the competent client inside. And that's sometimes, for someone that's a little inundated with diagnoses and labels, hard, because they're thinking, oh, but if they're ADHD or if they're bipolar, how could this possibly work? I get that question a lot. And my answer is usually is how you're thinking about the person. And to me, that is where I've always jumped into the narrative way of thinking, because redescription and narrative therapy is very powerful. And so, so I'm answering, giving you a long answer to your question, but I think, I think our job as trainers is to number one, always respect where a new clinician is coming from. If they reject at first these ideas and say it makes sense, but would you be willing to try out a role play and see what it's like? And but I think once you experience it and you see it happen in front of you, and that's what happened with me with my first family I used it on, there was no way I'd do anything else. It was just that way. I remember the family.
And I think me and Aisha also remember that, because I think when you first learn the approach, you kind of dip in and out of bits of it.
Yes.
But you don't feel confident enough to say, do you know what, I'm going to do this from start to finish.
Right.
And see where it goes.
That's a really good point. I remember, because again, I was coming from strategic family therapy thinking. So I remember when I started reading O'Hanlon's book, and then I read DeShazer's book, and what I would do is look at all the case studies, and I started scripting out what they were doing and how the questions were flowing, and I'd keep that in front of me for a couple of years because it was too easy to get interested in the problem. But focusing in there and making sure I would follow at least some kind of process that would lead us to building solutions rather than dissecting problems.
And I've got your book. I'm halfway through it. I'm really enjoying it. But I guess you're one of the few. I spoke to a practitioner yesterday that is kind of combining solution focus with non-violent resistant approaches, and you're combining solution focus with the narrative approach. How did that come about?
Well, if you remember when I was just describing how I came into contact with solution focus, I read Michael White and David Epson's book at the same time. So, I was loving O'Hanlon's ideas and Michelle Winter Davis, but I was also captivated by externalizing the problem, and that Michael White wrote that, and the letters that David Epson wrote. So I thought, oh gosh, and so I really didn't think that I was combining both of them all this time, but until one of my students a few years ago, Elliot Connie, said, Dr. Metcalf, you've been doing this the whole time. And I said, oh,
Trust Elliot to point that out.
Elliot. My dear Elliot, yes. And, but it was, I did notice that. And it just seemed at times when I was being purely solution focused with people, there were always going to be people that were just not ready to jump into the preferred future, particularly people bothered by trauma, by abuse, by a sadness that was just overtaking them. And it seemed as if it was not going to be the respectful thing to just say, okay, so what are your best hopes? What are your best hopes? And they couldn't answer. And so according to Insu, this is my logic, who said jumping into the client's worldview is very important in order to gain cooperation and lessen resistance. I would jump into their worldview. So tell me about the sadness and how the sadness has tried its best to take over your life. What else has it done? What else has it done? What else has it done? And what I found was when I did that at first, and you can usually tell when a client comes in, and you've asked the best hopes and they say, I have no clue what my best hopes are. I'm just so depressed. That's when or this trauma has happened or the abuse has happened. That's when I would go down this path of talking about, tell me the effects it's had on your life, how it's tried to rob you, take things from you, and creating a list like that. And often that list gets very long. It would get 25, 30 items long. Wow. And then listening to them and reading it back slowly, I started noticing that when I did that, the person across from me would begin to go, they'd begin to get frustrated that they let such a thing take over their life. And it was like you could almost begin to see them ready to stand up and stop allowing it. And after I've read it back, and that's the timeline that you're reading about in the book, then I would say, I want to invite you to think about, if we drew a timeline, and you had the chance to step out of this story into a story that you write without co-authors. You were the sole author. How would you story that? How would you write that new story that would be something that you'd prefer? And then I would see them just light up like, oh, I'll tell you. And so when they would tell me, then I start writing it under the timeline and ask them, so after we've gotten another 25 things, and ask them, what shall we call this chapter? And that way they became, in solution focused world, the author of their story. They became the competent individual who was always in there. And so that was the combination. And it was the second chapter, of course, was using the miracle question indirectly. Suppose you wake up tomorrow and you're moving forward on this timeline and things are beginning to happen as you always wanted them to happen. What would be going on? And what would people see? And all those solution focused questions that are so wonderful to elicit what people want. And that was how the combination kind of started. And just depends on the client which direction to go. And that again is, I think, a solution focused approach.
Linda, you explained that so beautifully. I was just sitting here mesmerized, just wow. I was having an Insu moment. Wow.
Okay.
You know, I'm you could be saying anything right now and I'm still going to be saying wow.
Yeah.
It's you know, it's and your students are so lucky to have you. I'm actually really jealous of Elliot right now. For your, it's just you're absolutely fantastic, and you know how much I appreciate you and how much I adore you and see you as one of my solution focused mentors. And we're quite lucky because we have a few. But I'm quite interested in the books.
Well, good. Yeah.
So how did the books come about? What are they? What is the story you're telling in the books for those that do not know who you are or the books? I mean, if they don't know you, then shame on them. But
you mean the solution focus, the other books are just narrative therapy?
I think narrative therapy, but also the one that what we've got here, the counselling towards solutions.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, let me talk about counseling towards solutions first.
Yeah.
Because that was interesting. I was toward the end of my doctoral program, and I started off my career as a school counselor and a middle school teacher, and so school counselor, and then I was working at a psychiatric hospital, which at the time here in Texas was truly abusing the system. Many of them were where they would take on patients and charge lots of money, and the patients wouldn't get very good care, and so at one point. Those hospitals got closed, and I lost a job, and I went into private practice and started thinking, I've always loved schools. I still always gravitate towards schools since I love it, and started going to some school counseling conferences. And one I went to in I think 92 or 93. I looked at all the books they had on display, and certainly there were no solution focused books anywhere. And so I didn't know what I was doing, but I picked up a couple and wrote down the publishers' names that were on the back of the book and wrote them a letter and said, I'm interested in writing, but I do these workshops because I was doing them at that point. I charge $25 US for 6 hours a day. And just if people will come, I'll talk to you about this. And so I had a folder full of notes and things, and I wrote them and said, I've got some ideas that I think would be very helpful to school counselors. Would you be interested? And it was Prentice Hall in New York, and I didn't know what I was doing. They and another one, Josie Bass, wrote me back a postcard and said, no, thank you. They later on adopted the book. But anyway, so Prentice wrote back and said, well, we'd like you to know we're interested, but you need to be an educator. And I wrote them back and said, I am an educator. So they said, okay, send us 3 chapters. And I said, and I wrote them back. I had no idea what I was doing. And I wrote them back and I said, well, right now I'm finishing up my dissertation. So it's going to be about 6 months until I can do that. And so they wrote back, said, okay, we'll wait. Well, they did. And I put it together, and I got a call in February of 1994. by this editor, and she said, "We like what you're doing, and we want to publish your book. When can you have it done?" And I said, I didn't know what I was, again, new at this thing. I can get it done in 5 months. And she said, "Oh, that's really good." And so that's how that one got published. And that's my favorite one that I've ever done, because it's, it's, besides the solution focused narrative book, that's also very special. But that one has taken me places. I've been so lucky to be asked to talk about it all over the world. And that's just, I'm very indebted to those people that took the time to invite me to do that. And, but the solution focused narrative therapy book came about at a time when I was, Elliot again was saying, you really need to put this down. And so I said, well, I need to think about how I'd put it down, because I don't know what I'm doing when I do this. And that was the hardest part. How do I do this thing? And so it took longer and it took a while, but that's how it came together. And when it first came out and I was going to get endorsements, I had some people turn me down. And then I had, but Bill O'Hanlon has always been a really wonderful, kind person to me. And he said, "Linda, the sky's the limit, go for it." Yeah. And so I did find some people to endorse it. And it was a little bit of a controversial thing, but it works. So, and that's what you should always kind of push I've always been an envelope pusher, let's try something outside the box.
So what kept you going, even though maybe people were saying, "Oh, I don't think that's a good idea, Linda. You may rock the boat somewhere."
Yeah, I mean, it was criticized by the people that were not criticizing it. And it seemed as if I had more narrative friends that were supportive. And there were some, and I did have some sweet solution focused friends. Denise Youssef at Brief was saying, I think it's a great idea to try out, see what happens with it. Good for you. You kind of rely on those. And again, when you're solution focused, I think you have to have that mindset of they may not like it, but somebody here does. So you have to, not that it doesn't hurt sometimes, it does, but you have to go forward. And, it's between you and your clients. And when you see it work in a therapy room, it gives you the reason to say, I think this is something I want to share.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so tell us about some of your, I know you was talking about working in schools, and that seems to be, would it be right to say that's a passion of yours, working with students and young people?
My first passion, yes.
Yeah. So is that still ongoing, or is that something that you're still continuing with?
As far as teaching in schools, you mean, or
working directly with students?
Yes. Yeah. My favorite things to do are to go to school districts here in the U.S. And actually, I've done this in other schools all over the world, and talk to school counselors and teachers and give them the ideas behind the model and how they might utilize them with students in their classes. And that's my favorite thing to do. It's just it's a deep passion of mine to contribute something to education, because I think we've been in a bad place with the way, at least in the U.S., where, example, a couple of years ago, there were over 60,000 suspensions of children from kindergarten through third grade.
Wow.
And at a time in their life when they need to be engaged, we're disengaging them. And, we have alternative schools that often are attended better and perform better because people have time to talk to kids, build relationships, and kids do well. And so, yeah, it is a passion of mine. And so I really love the opportunity to talk to teachers. And so right now I'm actually working with a school district in Texas that is becoming, it's going to be amazing. I've trained all of their school counselors. This summer I will train all of their teachers virtually. And the educational, the guidance director is phenomenal, and she's committed to making the entire district solution focused.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is
Yeah.
incredible. She's really, it takes the consistency and the belief like that of a person, and she's doing it, and I'm so impressed with her.
Yeah.
So
What would you say, Linda? Sorry, is what would be the difference between a solution focused school and, let's just say, a normal, what we'd call in the UK, a normal state school?
I think you would notice the difference when you walk in the door.
All right.
There's a school here in Austin, Texas. The name of the school is Garza High School, Gonzalo Garza High School. It is a solution-focused alternative high school.
Wow.
And they have, Garza, Garza High School. And I know the principal, and she's going to be in my conference. And I went to visit them in person a year ago, and the janitor opened the door and greeted me. Hi, how are you? My name is Frank, and this is our school. You're here, and oh my gosh! So I walk in, go to the reception area, and the lady stands up. Hi, my name is Ellen, and I'm the receptionist. How can I help you today? I'm so glad to have you here. And I looked around at all the people in their cubicles, and they were waving at me, and I thought, I walked into a school with, and so at that school, the difference there is every student, and they're all at risk.
Mm.
All of these kids have either dropped out or been suspended or expelled or been in jail. Pregnant. They're all there. 80% of them are that way, and awful experiences. But every child, every student there, and this is all high school, is seen as a competent individual that they need to make the curriculum more rigorous so they can be successful. And 80% of them graduate and go on to college.
Wow.
So walking into that school, I think what would be different is if a teacher in a solution-focused school had a mishap with a student, and really in a solution-focused school, it's very rare. This school has only had 3 fights in 10 years.
Wow.
But if the student was acting up, you'd see the teacher not embarrass the child, not reprimand, not threaten. They might step outside in the hallway and say, it seems like things are a little off track with you this morning. What can I do as your teacher till we can both get back on track? And that would be how that would be handled. There would be no, you're going to the office, I don't want you in here. There would be no negative talk, which happens too often in schools by teachers that just, don't really know what else to do. And I recognize that. They don't know what else to do besides just punish. But here's the really exciting thing. In this school, when students come and enroll in the school, they also take something called a code of honor, where they agree to be respectful. They agree to be kind. They agree to do their work. And the teachers take a code of honor. I agree to be respectful. I agree to do what's necessary to help a student succeed. I also agree to hold up high standards. So from the very beginning, there is a mindset, and that word is actually all over the school. It's a mindset. Contrast that to in the U.S., that's all I can compare it to, a U.S. school where I would go in and I do that a lot when I have clients that are school or have issues with school. And I'll hear things from teachers that are just, there's no point in having him in my class anymore. He needs to get out. I don't want him in my class. He's disrespectful. Why should I be respectful until he is? That mindset. Because again, they don't know any other approach. And then the administrators who give up on a kid and basically just follow the kid around and watch for them to do wrong so they can kick them out. Or the teacher who keeps on sending kids to the office because he or she doesn't know what else to do, and the kids do get, and it's a cycle. And so that's the difference. I think the difference is we're not focusing on power in the solution focused school. We're focusing on empowering kids.
Yeah.
So it's a big mind shift.
Yeah.
Big mind.
Linda, Gil has just posted a question. Is that school the one that Cynthia Franklin had a lot to do with initially in training staff in SFT?
Absolutely it is. That is her school. Yes. She was the amazing architect of that school. And she wrote a wonderful book, Solution Focused Therapy in Alternative Schools, which is a new book, and it's wonderful to read. Yes. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Cynthia's a good friend. Yes.
So, because obviously in the UK, Linda, what's happened with finances and cutbacks into social care, but also the school system, is that you find that the support staff are the ones that seem to disappear first. Obviously, because there has to be teachers in front of the classroom, and you get that mindset. Well, when students do something wrong, there needs to be a consequence, there needs to be a punishment, and unfortunately, like you say, that they end up falling out of the system altogether. And it's really difficult to persuade schools that, okay, you have a tight budget, but these are the benefits. So in that school, you had a head that obviously was had that mindset, that solution-focused mindset.
Right.
How do you persuade? How do you persuade a school that is still using that, punishment, consequence? Because of our performance tables, you need to go because you're not going to get those grades because of your behavior, and these poor kids end up on the trash heap.
Right. How I do it often is if I'm asked to go in and quote convince somebody, which is hard, is I go in and ask them how do they wish things would be at their school.
Yeah.
It's back to the model again. If you had your way and you came to school tomorrow and things were better for you, the students and the teachers, what would be happening? And they've got ideas, and these ideas are not expensive. These are, a school counselor who has some training and an administrator who has some training can begin to do the things that we're talking about. I did some work in a state of Iowa for several years with the school district in the U.S. where there was they were being fined a lot because they had suddenly a group of minorities that came in and the teachers didn't know how to teach them, they said. And so they would just send them all to special ed. Well, the state of Iowa said, we're going to fine you a lot of money if you don't start putting these kids in the regular classroom. So I did a lot of training there, and some other colleagues did. And one of the first things that we found was helpful, and this came from principals, was that the principal or in your set, maybe the headmaster had to set the pace. And so what one did was to say to his teachers, okay, you've had some solution-focused training and how to begin to talk to students and watch out for times when they're doing better. Should you have a student that you need to refer for discipline, I will not see that student unless you have a conversation first.
Wow. Yeah.
And it had to be a solution-focused conversation. And what happened with that was, teachers were not happy with that because, again, they wanted to be able to teach the way they wanted to teach. And so there was a lot of reluctance. But when they did begin to get it going, referrals drastically dropped. And teachers became more competent because they were asked to find out who is this kid, get to know who this person is, this student in your classroom, and find out what his best hopes were and what your best hopes were, and training teachers and letting them know it's okay to say to a student outside the classroom, I'm kind of at a loss here. I've been trying to help you learn this material, and it seems as if you're not interested. What can I do as your teacher to help it be more interesting? That's a big leap for some teachers to take. But once they do it, the results are quite incredible.
And it saves staff a lot of time. It saves teachers and counselors so much more time than having to revisit the same situation over and over again.
Yeah, it does. And so when I teach teachers, and I've got some coming up this summer to teach in this district, one of the first things I'll be asking them is, how do you want your fall semester to go? They've got to lead me down the way and to where I can begin to hear what they want. And I can say, would it be okay if I gave you some ideas that might make that happen for you on a small scale?
Yeah.
And then they're more interested, because I also learned as a school counselor that particularly in the secondary grades, that asking a teacher at a secondary school to try one more thing or do one more thing was not always met with, oh, sure. Instead, what I learned was when I would talk to a student, I would never send the student back to class. I would walk the student back to class, and with the student next to me, I would talk to the teacher and say, thank you for sending Joey to me. He and I have talked. He's got some ideas on what he's going to try out in class. Would you just mind watching?
Wow.
And then I would say something like, because Miss Smith, I work for you as much as I do for the students, and I want you to have the classroom that you want. It's got to be, you got to involve all the players in a school, because systemically, if I were just to send Joey back after he'd come up with some ideas on what he wanted to do, and the teacher being human is going to see Joey as the same Joey who disrupted her class, and I've got to disrupt that viewpoint and change her glasses so she could see him differently.
Oh, I like that. Change the glasses.
Yeah.
All right, Joe, write that down.
Yeah, that's one we're stealing, Linda.
That's one we're stealing. We always end up stealing. Linda, one of my old school friends has just posed a question. Her name is Sophie, and she asked, "Can I ask Linda how she would approach solution-focused narrative when working with other professionals within a multi-agency setting with the same client who are not using that approach?"
I think you walk in respectful, Sophie, and you respect what they're doing, and that you ask them, I'm guessing she needs to clear it with them. Does she need to cooperate with what they're doing? Is that what, and just say, I really respect what you're doing, but I'm just going to try something else, and this is my thinking behind it. Could you, give me a few days to try it out, and I'll just come back with you and let you know. I think you have to be really respectful to those who don't understand and are resistant. Because again, that's what the model is about. It's about respecting the competent person. So, but Sophie, I have been there, and the way that I often think about it is, I will, listen in those meetings and understand what they're trying to do, and applaud them for their efforts. But when I go into the room with my client and I shut the door, I'm a solution-focused narrative therapist.
Yeah.
And
sometimes in those team meetings, those professional meetings, you ask your solution focused questions, and you model it without stepping on anyone's toes, and that's very subtle. That's a subtle way of kind of introducing it, but absolutely, Sophie, you do that. You call me.
So how much of your are you training? As well as training staff that are already placed at schools, Linda, do you ever do training for up and coming teachers that may be going into the profession for the first time?
I've tried that on one occasion, and it was an interesting experience. The students liked it, but the teachers weren't so sure what I was talking about.
Okay.
I only did it briefly. But that would be, I've often said, I work at a university and they have a school of education, and the dean is always very open to me coming over and talking. And so I'm always saying, let me teach a class, please, let me teach a class. But because it's such a shift, I'm not quite sure I would be. But, I do get to teach the new teachers who get out and they've already got their certification, and that's always fun too. It is.
Yeah. So I've attended 2 of your recent training webinars. Can you, because you've got one this evening, so I have to stay up tonight. And it's a really important subject, especially for us as an organization. We often find that a lot of the battles that parents have are for children who just do not want to go to school, and that was difficult enough when the schools were open, but now that they've been closed for such a long time, this is going to be really vital. So how can people attend? What would they expect to find when they log on?
Well, they will hear 2 case studies, both adolescents that were, one was, well, hard to say. He was not attending school regularly. A lot of family disruption. The other one physically got symptoms where he would just tremble and just could not make it into the school. And he'd only gone 2 days that year. And at the beginning of the school year, and his mom brought him to me. And I saw him in the first session. I could tell he was one of those clients that was not, he was great in talking about the exceptions. He was of times when he did go to school, which he had gone 2 years ago all year. The year after that, his mom homeschooled him because it was just too hard to get him to school. And so they found a new school, and he was trying to get out and went 2 days and quit. So after my first session with him, I realized this was definitely going to need a school visit. And so that's what I'll talk about tonight, about what I do when I go into school visits. And I do those whenever I have a client that is a school-related issue, about a school, like maybe they're getting in trouble, they're depressed at school, they're not performing, they're not motivated. I see them the first time in my office, and the second time I go to campus with them and meet with all of their teachers and an administrator and the parent and the student. We're all in a meeting together. And sometimes I have to go and let the students stay out of the meeting for a bit just to see what the climate is around the student. But once I kind of understand that, then I'll invite them in. And then we do a few things that I'll talk about tonight.
Oh, let's see. She's left a bit of a teaser there.
Oh, I mean, for the UK lot, this does start at 11 p.m, but it's really, really worth it. And in fact, last week I was absolutely exhausted. It was 10:30, and I thought, no, I can't. I'm going to go to bed. And then it was 11:15. I thought, no, I can't miss out because I'll feel like I missed out. So it's we're completely drawn to it now. We're addicted to it, and it's absolutely brilliant. Absolutely, honestly, it's and it's lovely. It's lovely to hear your voice. It's always amazing to hear your voice. Full of knowledge.
Well, if it helps at all, I always record them and I put them on my website. So if you have tonight, you can always go to the website. You've got 24 hours, and then I download it to Google Drive and I put it on the website. So
fantastic. Okay, I will share the link for everyone. I've been dying to ask you a question, and I know we've spoken about important topics here, but that time that you had dinner with Insu Kim and Steve DeShazer, can we go back to that a little bit? What did that look like?
I was starstruck,
a bit like me right now. Yeah.
She was very, very talkative. And just delightful. Steve just kind of sat there. He was not a very talkative person. Brilliant man, but not very talkative. And it was my teacher that invited me to go. And yeah, I remember the night it was storming. How do you not forget that? Those times and moments. But it was great. And then they came to our school the next day and observed some clinicians working behind the mirror. And Steve sat in the corner and didn't say a lot, and NC was up, animated, helping us all to kind of get things going. Very, very kind people, for sure. Passionate about what they do, really wanting to make a difference in the world. That's who they were. Yeah. So I had the pleasure of saying that, and Bill O'Hanlon was great too. I got to meet him on a few occasions, and he's just really a funny man. Yeah,
we missed out on that, Joe.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen a recent. We were really lucky that we've seen a recent video of Steve DeShazer.
No, recently we saw it.
Yeah, very recent. What?
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
Oh.
It's very difficult to get those interviews on YouTube unless you've already got those. And Gil, the lovely Gil Green, has a library of these, and it was the one with the lady that felt that the neighbor above her had a ray gun to stop her sleeping.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely fascinating to see him work.
Have you seen the video of him talking to the couple who were schizophrenic?
No.
Oh no, Gil, if you're here, because I think you are, Gil.
Yeah, I saw that
Gil.
school, and it was just fascinating. I mean, and this was wonderful what he did. I'll never forget it. And he said, they were talking about the voices, and that were bothering them. There were all these medications. I think they were homeless actually. And DeShazer says, "Well, tell me about times that you don't listen to them."
Mm.
And that would be class. That's so. I mean, he was such a simplistic man in the way he just zeroed right in. He had such a clear idea of these competencies of people that, and there was the other case too of the guy who said that he was, I don't know what it was. He was snoring on one side of the bed. So Jashaja said, well, over the next week, try sleeping on the other side. I mean, just a simple thing, but it was that way. He was no nonsense, very simple.
Mm.
Yeah.
Gil doesn't have that one, guys.
Okay.
Oh, Gil.
Well, I just said we still love you.
We still love Gil, and we're going to see part 2 of the ray gun lady. So I'm really looking forward to that. So, what's your plans for the future, Lynn? Where's your next, I don't know, path of passion, if you like?
Well, I think, this COVID-19 has been quite an experience. And I think that's how the webinars were born, because I teach at a university, and I'll continue to do that for a while, not too much longer, I don't think, because I've been so excited about how the webinars are going. But I have a virtual conference in October. And I had this, last year I had a face-to-face. It was the first solution-focused school conference, and it was here in Texas. And it was well attended. And so through the webinar, I asked the community one day in the webinar if they'd be interested in a virtual conference, and the yeses just kind of lined up. So, because I don't want to plan something face to face, it's not fair, nor is it safe. And so that's what I'm working on pretty hard right now to get an agenda going. It'll be over 3 days. And it's called the Solution Focused School Conference. And so you can just Google Solution Focused School Conference, and it's all about schools and using the approach, and have some amazing people. And AC is going to be also presenting something on groups, which I'm excited about.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yes, I was asked.
Yeah. Well, this is new. Well done.
See, this is where I can't stop smiling, and the competitiveness kicks in, one-sided, of course. Yes, Joseph. Linda asked, and I accepted.
I'm so happy. Yes, and I'm going to try and make it early in the day, not too early. Early towards, you don't have to wait till 11 p.m. at night.
Oh, it doesn't matter to us, Linda. You lead, we follow.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fine.
That's going to be fantastic, because the reach will be so much wider, won't it?
Yeah, I mean, I have people from Singapore and London, of course, with AC. And Denise Yusuf is also going to be talking about her new book, and someone from Canada. And I'm getting to think about asking Ben Furman if he might talk about kids skills, because I just love his work. So that's where it is. And that plus people, the guidance director from the district I mentioned, who's making her entire school district solution focused. Brilliant. And another lady named Ann Rambo, and you met her, I think, AC.
Yes.
She'll talk about a program she started 13 years ago called the Promise Program. And that program takes nonviolent youth who would have normally been expelled or suspended, and it has a huge success rate with helping kids turn things around using solution-focused approach. There's so many applications to this stuff. We're so lucky to get to know it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said, and like I said before we came on air, this in many ways, I'm so thankful to the lockdown. Obviously, it's not great circumstances, but otherwise we none of us would have connected. And I certainly would not have met you or Gil or Mark or most people that we've now linked in with. And it really has been amazing, because even though Joe and I know all solution practitioners do believe that you never stop learning. You can never stop learning, and we're always learning from our clients. but I didn't realize actually there's so much more to it because you're so busy working all day.
It's really true. And this, you're right, this has given us a time to kind of, I don't know, reassess what you were the most passionate about. So
yeah, and reflect and listen.
Yeah, listen to yourself too, and see what
Mm.
what my husband's always funny. He's when we've been on this lockdown, and I'm thinking, gosh, I really love doing this, and I like doing this. He said, okay, if a miracle happened, and you look at
You trained him well, Linda.
I'm afraid he hears it too much.
Yeah, when they use it against you, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, Linda, I normally ask our wonderful guests a question. If you were to pick your top 5 solution-focused questions, what would they be?
You really shouldn't put anyone on the spot.
I like doing that.
I know you like doing that.
But I know Linda's they're just gonna roll off her tongue.
Well,
read your book.
My all-time favorite would be, what difference would it make for you?
Yeah.
I use it so many times. I learned that at brief therapy practice many years ago. It just, because that allows me, no matter what a client says they want in the future, I can ask that question over and over and over. What difference would it make for you? And we'll get someplace. That would be one. It's always an exception question. Tell me times when. What else is huge? That's a huge question. I use that lots and lots and lots and lots. And then there's always if you had your wish. I ask that of children. If you had a wish, or if I had a magic wand, and I waved it over your school, and you walked into the door tomorrow morning, and from the very minute you put a foot inside the door, something was different. What would it be? That kind of thing. Let's see, how am I doing? Did I give you 4 or 5?
4, yeah.
Okay, gosh, let me see. And then the best hopes question. I mean, because a client that comes in sometimes and they're rattling on and on and on and on, and you're thinking, oh my God, what can I do with this client? And then you say, thanks for all of that. What are your best hopes for our time? And they go, whoop, there you go. That's what,
I knew Linda would roll them off. It was no sweat.
I was really thinking hard. So, yeah.
You just like that little bit of power over them, Joe.
No. I'm just collecting all these questions, Linda. That's all.
We actually don't know what we're doing. We're not even trained in solution focus. We just do this to just write them down and just try them out.
There's another one I like to ask, and I guess it'll be number 6, and that is, I like to ask students, who do you wish the teachers would see when you walk in the classroom? That question, and that's a sprinkle of narrative therapy in it.
Yeah.
But I love asking that question because kids often think that they are misunderstood, and I love saying, you must be misunderstood, and they go, oh, I am. So who do you wish they would see? And that's always been a fun question.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Another one to keep.
Another one. Yeah, we'll have to watch this back and write all this down, Joe.
Yeah.
No, it's you are honestly an amazing lady, and very inspirational. And we're very lucky to have you here as one of our what Joe and I will call A-listers.
Oh yeah.
Which are our mentors. And we've adopted so many mentors in this time. We are very, very, very lucky. Joe and I really do count ourselves very lucky to know all of you and get to know more solution focused practitioners. But we will be seeing each other in a few hours.
Yes.
And we'll be there with our notepad and pens in front of the laptop.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I'm going to go redo the PowerPoint again. So.
No pressure. No pressure. Any last words from either one of you?
Just hello to my wonderful friends in England, and I miss all of you this summer, and the wonderful people at Brief, and Mark and Amanda Redstone, Mark Hayward and Amanda Redstone. We will be back, and also thanks to all of you for listening to Asa and Joe, because you guys you're doing a big service to all of your colleagues in the UK. hosting this, and I hope to participate in another one in the future. Please send me things.
Yeah, it'd be brilliant.
We would absolutely love that. We'd be honoured.
Yes, thank
you. It'd be amazing.
So, how can people log on tonight, Linda? Because I know we've already reserved our places, or have they all gone?
If they go to my website, metcalfconsulting.org, they will see
Metcalf Consulting.
I will just put it at the bottom.
If you go on there on the home page, you'll see where it says to register, and they can certainly join. It's free. I could take up to 1,000 people on that. So yeah, no problem. I think I've got 400 right now. So, but that usually means that maybe 200 will come. That's kind of how it goes.
Yeah. Well, we haven't missed one yet.
Oh.
So we look forward to it. Linda, can I just ask you to hang on and not leave while we say goodbye to everybody? So thank you everyone for watching another FBS chat. And we were very, very, very lucky to have Linda Metcalf here with us tonight. Extremely privileged, a bit starstruck, to be honest. You are totally amazing. And when Joe finishes the book, it's my turn. So I'm just waiting for him. But I will be reading it. So good night to everyone.
Good night,
and we're going to go
everybody.
prepare for Linda's workshop later.
Yeah. Thank you so much.